Hi there, I'm Uncle Joel, and this is Pen and Reel, where I'll take a look at media issues not from the perspective of a fan or consumer, but as a writer and filmmaker. Okay, let's talk about Superman. To start, I have to be open. Superman is my favorite fictional character. In fact, Superman is so deeply significant to me that you can't fully understand me if you don't understand my love of Superman. There's something about the character that connected with me as a child and has stuck with me to this day, and has served to inform my relationship with my dad, my views of fatherhood, and so much more. I identified with Clark Kent, and I completely understood the disparity between Clark and Superman. I cannot overstate the importance of Superman to me, so you can probably understand my frustration with WB's mishandling of the character for as long as I can remember. For years, comic writers struggled to tell good Superman stories, with there seeming to be more bad Superman comics than good ones. To be fair, storytelling in superhero comics has evolved significantly over the last few decades, and the standards we hold now simply weren't around back when I first picked up the funny books. It's not unreasonable to say that the writers did not understand the character, instead writing a caricature of the hero they thought they knew. Unfortunately, this carried over to the movies as well. Superman Returns seemed to have a decent grasp on who the character is, but not why he is. They abandoned the half they didn't understand, which unfortunately was Superman himself. Then Man of Steel came along and gave us an exciting live-action version, but he lacked the depth and heart that makes people love him. It's like they went to the opposite side of the pendulum. And that was stomped into the ground in subsequent films. All of this ties into what I said in my previous video about the DCEU. Specifically, that WB needs to hire someone to oversee all DC movies, and make sure they are created by people who understand the characters before they try to make films about them. This goes for Superman more than just about any other character, because it's so easy to get him wrong. They really need to put in the effort to get it right. But what does right look like? What elements are crucial to Superman? How should the next Superman movie be made? To begin with, assume everyone knows Superman's origin. This has been said about other characters in the past, specifically Batman and Spider-Man, but Superman as well. But Superman doesn't need to have where he came from explained. The only reason this should come into the movie is if it is relevant to the rest of the story, such as introducing Zod like they did in Man of Steel. Start the movie in Metropolis. It's a bright city, a bustling megacity of immense potential and hope. Have Superman do things around town, like pushing someone out of the way of an oncoming bus, reinforcing a metal scaffold that is about to collapse, unbeknownst to those on it. Have him stop a bank robbery that's about to take place, and have the robbers say that their informant told them that Supes would be out of town today. He was supposed to be in Central City. Make it clear that this is a big world that people have expectations, and that Superman is very much a part of that. Not only is Superman a part of the world, he is loved and revered by the city. He is a beacon of hope, a symbol of optimism. There's nothing to worry about if Superman is around. Make the Daily Planet prominent. This is where Clark spends most of his time when he isn't saving the day, so it is just as important as anything else. Perry needs to be the tough-as-nails chief who pushes everyone because they're on a deadline, but also because he knows everyone can be better, and he secretly cares. Have Jimmy Olsen be a somewhat bumbling intern who is determined he is going to make it one day, so he has his camera on him at all times, even when he is supposed to be delivering coffee. And Lois Lane is the top reporter, but she hasn't quite made it yet. She's determined to earn the Pulitzer, and she believes she has just the story. Bruno Mannheim, rumored to have links to Intergang, has been spotted multiple times in and around Lex Tower. Lois is determined to expose Metropolis' golden boy and bring down Intergang in the process. But the story isn't about Lex. He will be there. He will feature, but he will be positioned as the big boss behind the scenes, always just a little bit out of reach so they can't pin anything on him. No having Lex Luthor as the big bad, no Zod. We've seen enough of them, so it's time to let others shine. For the first movie, we should have Metallo as the antagonist. Give us a villain who is being manipulated by Lex and her gang, but appears as the primary villain throughout. We start out with someone who can really challenge Superman, but isn't a top-tier villain. Build to and tease the big stuff. I think Metallo would be perfect for this, so having him take center stage would be perfect. And build Metallo to be a compelling character. No more villains who are evil for evil's sake. Well, there will be those, such as Darkseid later on, but they should be the exception rather than the rule. I want to see John Corbin vying for Lois's affection, making him a rival for both Superman and Clark Kent. I want to see a man who desperately wants to be good, but his greed gets the better of him, sending him down a dark path that includes burglary and eventually murder. And then, when it seems he is on the teetering point, considering turning himself in for going too far, there is a major disaster. The hover train that runs around the city is attacked by an unknown domestic terrorist. Intergang, perhaps? And Superman is seen swooping in to save the day. Corbin gets fatally injured in the attack, and all he sees is Superman landing nearby, rescuing someone else, and then flying off, seemingly ignoring the fallen man. Only John Corbin is somewhat lucky. He happens to have been wounded when he was attempting to break into a laboratory to steal advanced cybernetic equipment that would fetch a fair price if sold to the right people. Intergang, yet again, anyone? One of the scientists comes rushing out to see the damage to the fallen part of the building, only to find John Corbin lying in the rubble, dying. The scientist, Professor Emmett Vale, seeing that there is no time to get emergency services here before he will perish, quickly gets the dying man into his lab. John Corbin wakes up as a cyborg. Basically a Terminator. He's a robot with human flesh over his frame, with a kryptonite heart as a power source. Only he finds that he cannot feel anything. He has no proper sense of touch aside from rudimentary contact sensors. He cannot experience the joys of human interaction ever again. No more sense of smell, no enjoying the cool breeze, nothing that goes beyond internal sensors providing digital information feedback on what they are scanning around him. And in a fit of rage at this realization, John kills Professor Vale, sending him over the edge in the wrong direction. Ultimately, John Corbin blames Superman and vows revenge. This gives a very nice tie to the Man of Steel, a strong and even understandable personal drive for the villain, and ties together the story into one cohesive plot that plays off one another rather than simply, here's a bad guy, good guy has to stop them. In the end, we could have evidence that the technology being used by Intergang is from a variety of alien sources. There's heavy weaponry said to have come from the Furies. We see Kryptonian tech, and they use devices to store and transport information that has a V on it with circles at each of the points. And at the end, one activates, sending a signal off-world. Throughout the movie, we get Superman's battle with the villain, teamed with his own investigative talents as a journalist. He knows how to uncover information that the average person wouldn't. Likewise, Lois's investigation would feature heavily, which could serve to put her in danger and need rescuing in a way that feels natural and fitting to the character. Contrast Clark and Superman, but show that they're the same person. Clark's humanity is what makes Superman so strong and compelling. The way I see it, he is a timid man who is socially awkward, an introvert who needs his solitude, who doesn't always know how to say the right things, especially around the woman of his dreams, or people he finds intimidating, like Perry. But there is trouble. When there is trouble, when he is needed for something only he can do, he leaps into action and doesn't give a second thought to any of that. This is much the same way that I function, so it makes perfect sense to me to see that seemingly strange dichotomy between Superman and Clark Kent. and lean into Superman as a compassionate, caring person. Make mercy one of his great strengths and weaknesses, something the villains will prey on. There's a scene I thought up a while ago that I would include if I ever wrote a Superman or Justice League comic. Superman flies in and rescues hundreds of people from some major disaster. A tornado, for instance. He saves hundreds and the tornado vanishes. The scene settles. Everyone is relieved, but Superman takes to the skies once more, scanning the area. He finds 2 people, crushed in their car, dead. He falls to his knees near the car. Someone, say his dad, approaches him, puts a hand on his shoulder and says, "Clark, you saved hundreds." "It isn't about the numbers," Superman says, not looking back. "It never was." He walks, not flies, walks to the nearby crowd, finding the people who are still looking panicked, and approaches them. They look at him expectantly, and he lowers his head, but never breaks eye contact. "I'm sorry," he says, sorrowful, shaking his head. The people wail, and Superman extends his arms to embrace them. He holds them as they cry, the wreckage in the background. Adding a scene like this really drives home the humanity of Superman, and that his greatest superpower is his heart. He cares. Yes, it's awesome that he saved hundreds of people, but we need to mourn the ones who were lost and not get caught up in a numbers game. Every life matters. "I could have tried harder," Superman tells his dad later. "You did what you could," his dad assures him. "But I could have done more," Superman responds. "I could have focused. I could have listened, looked. I could have saved them. I should have saved them." And thus, Superman carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. Where other heroes, like Batman, see the statistics, see the overall success, Superman feels the pain of every failure. He can always do more. He can always be better. Never mind the fact that he already does more than anyone ever could. Furthermore, it ties the weight of Superman's guilt and struggle to be better in with the story of John Corbin, lending some validity to the villain's complaint, even if it isn't entirely reasonable. This drives home the emotional resonance of the entire conflict and adds a significant layer of complexity. And that's the crux of it. We need to feel something. We need to want Superman to triumph because he may be extremely powerful, but he has doubts and fears and compassion like us. Make us connect with him in a way that makes us wish we knew him, and make him inspirational. He doubts himself, but he always pushes forward. He doesn't know how to talk to Lois or stand up for himself properly in the office, but he sure as hell can stand up to the evil confronting him. Give us a Man of Steel that inspires, and you'll sell a whole new generation on what exactly makes Superman so super. And from there, you can build sequels that have higher stakes and build the world. That tease I mentioned with the alien communication device could lead to Brainiac's arrival in the second film, which would give us the Bottle City of Kandor. Only in the third would we truly return to Lex, donning full exosuit and everything. Building that tension and teasing stuff to come would make these figures all the more daunting. And really, don't kill the bad guys, at least not all of them. One of the things that has frustrated me the most about Marvel movies is just how many of the villains get killed off. Let's not do that, so they can return later, or at the very least because this is Superman. This would go a long way toward making him inspirational again. Never mind all of the naysayers who think superheroes should kill their villains. I don't care about that. Keep Superman from killing. At the very least, it would be consistent with his character, especially if you establish his desire to always be better. And if he has to kill someone, have it be later and have it be unavoidable. That scene in Man of Steel where he kills Zod, that could have carried a lot of weight if it wasn't the first villain he fought. I truly believe that if we built up the character properly, and then gave him some amazing fights with a foe who does more than simply trade blows, we could have a truly great Superman movie. In fact, this could be the Superman movie I have always wanted and have never seen realized. Please, WB, do a movie like this. I will be eternally grateful, and you'll appreciate it if you do. That being said, what do you think? Does a more character-driven approach work for you? Can you see Superman be exciting again if we make him inspirational and humanize him? Would you want to see a series of movies that starts out small and then builds to something more, rather than diving right into the biggest and the baddest? What are your thoughts on how to make a good Superman movie? Let me know in the comments. I'm interested in hearing what you think. And until next time, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.